Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I'm your host, Brian Bosley. Before we get started today with our amazing guest, I just want to give a very heartfelt thank you to all of you listeners out there. All of you members of the Bamboo Pack, whether you've been with us for the past 2.5 years from the beginning, or whether this is your first episode. And all of my amazing guests, including the one I have on today, and all my future guests. We were just informed 2 days ago that we are now in the top 10% of all podcasts around the entire globe. And I'll tell you, when we started this 2.5 years ago, this journey, I really thought, clients might listen, some family members will probably listen, some friends, we'll pick up a few stragglers along the way. I had no idea this show was going to go the way it has. So it's been a great journey. It's a labor of love for me. And I just can't thank all of you guests and all of you listeners. I can't thank you enough. So my appreciations to all of you. So, all right, let's get rolling. Today we have a guest on who I've gotten to know really well over the past 2 years, somebody who I have a great deal of respect for as a leader and as a man. We've been able to work together over the past couple of years and work alongside of each other and talk on the phone quite often. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Brent Bruggink on. Brent is a former Navy infantry team leader and a combat veteran. After his honorable military service, he served as a police officer in special operations units in South Carolina, including SWAT, K-9, and street crimes. Currently, today, he is the Director of Client Operations at CG Financial. Now, I know a lot of you longtime listeners know that name because we've had 3 or 4 guests from this amazing company. CG Financial is a diversified financial services firm closing in on almost $4 billion in managed assets with an extreme laser focus on helping their clients and employees achieve lifelong goals. Brent himself leads client-facing and operations teams across multiple divisions of the company. He's a certified planned fiduciary advisor, and that's a mouthful. Brent is on the board of directors for the Greater Lansing SHRM and the Associate Leadership Board for the Junior Achievements of Mid-Michigan. When he's not working, Brent enjoys adventures, traveling, and experiencing new things with his amazing wife and daughter. He's also an avid outdoorsman, aspiring home cook, and automotive enthusiast. So I've been waiting for this for the past month. My friend Brent, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate it.
I've been looking forward to talking to you because I want to see if you're as much fun on this as you are when we talk on the phone.
Yeah, we'll see if I can live up to the hype.
All right, brother. Well, obviously, I know a lot about you, have gotten to know you well, and you've gotten to know me well over the past couple of years. But can you please share with the listeners out there a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your family, who or what inspired you? Just share whatever you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in West Michigan on a horse farm. My mom was a special education teacher. My dad, a physical therapist and a farmer, both retired now. So on our farm, we raised horses of all breeds. We had ducks, chickens, turkeys, pheasants, pigs, goats, cows. I mean, at one point, I even had a wallaby that lived on the farm. So I grew up on a zoo. Essentially, I'm the middle child. I've got a younger brother, an older sister. I was a difficult middle child. But today I'm blessed. I'm married to my best friend, Christina, who is an absolute saint. I've put her through so much over the years. I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. And I'm the dad to just an incredible, incredible daughter. Her name is Sutton. I'm going on 15 years of marriage. And we got engaged before I deployed to Iraq. And we got married 9 months after I got home. And then a few months after that, we packed up our stuff and we moved hundreds of miles away from family and just my wife and I, relying only on each other, which was a huge experience for us. Personally, my greatest joy in life is being a dad. There's just nothing else like it. A lot of my time is dedicated to my career, but when I can, as you mentioned, I love being outdoors. I love hunting. I enjoy being bad at golf. I love cars. I enjoy cars. I love Formula One. Outside of that, cooking, I thoroughly like to do that. I like to cook weird stuff too, so all kinds of different meat preps like kangaroo and camel and antelope. And when I hunt, weird things like nilgai to eat that too, so that's a ton of fun. And mostly I love seeing other people enjoy some of the food that I cook. I do some cookouts for the folks at CG Financial, and it's a blast.
I didn't know that you were an aspiring cook, a home cook.
Yeah, I say aspiring. I'm always getting better, right? But yeah, I do. It's something I've always enjoyed it, but I've started to focus on it maybe the past 12 months or so. I've started to dive more into it and try new things and actually try to get good and integrate flavors and match, salt and fat and sweet and spicy and ingredients and actually produce and cook up some pretty good stuff.
What is a wallaby? Isn't that like it's
like a mini kangaroo.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, a mini kangaroo lived at my house. Her name was Ruby the wallaby.
Ruby the wallaby. I was thinking of a sloth when you said. I was picturing a sloth.
I'm surprised that I'm sure that if my dad would have had the opportunity to buy a sloth at some animal auction at some point in his life, he probably would have bought it.
I had a pet alpaca when I was married.
Yes.
Well,
that's a good one.
Yeah, when I was married, we had our house was right next door to my in-laws, and they had an alpaca ranch, and they had like 100 alpacas, and that was when alpaca fiber was a big thing. I remember him saying one time, and I don't think I misheard this, that at that point the market was such at a peak that when a baby alpaca was born, as soon as it came out, it was worth between $80,000 and $100,000. Because of the fiber, because they grew, wow. they would stud them out, and so he gave us one, and I never did anything with it. Well, unfortunately, I got a divorce, so I lost my alpaca in the divorce. But I don't know if I ever saw the alpaca. It was in a barn in a farm with another 100 alpacas. So I don't think I could have picked mine out in a crowd, but.
Yeah, it was a straight up zoo. I remember when I was a kid, there would be the schools, like the local elementary schools around the area. I grew up in Byron Center, Michigan, and they would come to my house for field trips. So the schools, I'd be at home waiting for the bus to come up with all these kids that I knew. And I used to sell little cups of grain for 50 cents a cup to all the school kids coming to feed horses. And that was my video game money when I was a kid.
You sold grain to your classmates?
Yeah. I sold cups of grain to the classmates. So when they go through the barn and the stables, they could, feed the horses or the goats or the cows or whatever. I mean, we probably had, I feel like 100 horses at one point. I mean, we had animals everywhere.
What do you have now? Anything?
Personally, myself,
yeah. You have any?
Yeah, we've got a cat. We had 2 dogs that had passed, and then my daughter, she really wanted a pet, and we were about to leave on vacation to San Diego. I was going for a conference, and I was bringing Christina and Sutton with me, and then there was a pregnant mom cat that had a litter of kittens underneath, like by my front porch. And so I remember mowing the lawn for vacation. I could see the kittens there. And then my neighbor took them in. And then, so of course, we get home from our trip, and my daughter's there in my neighbor's garage every day with all the kittens, right? Because how could a 6-year-old girl at the time resist 6 of the cutest little cuddly kittens? So we ended up with a kitten. So I've got a cat.
I got to tell you, I was talking to Ashley last week, and she knew you were coming on the show, and she said she just always appreciates whenever you talk about Sutton. You're in a team's call. You just light up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds biased, right? Because she's my daughter, but when you meet her, you see it. She's an incredible kid.
How old is she now?
She's 7.
Okay, so she was 5 when I met her, because I met her 2 years ago. Yeah. I remember you guys walking in, because I had heard your name before, and when you guys walked in, I asked somebody, Tony or Ashley or Pam or someone who that was, and they said who you were. So That was the first time we met.
Yeah. No, she's the real deal. I'll tell everybody and anybody I can.
Well, let's give her a shout out to Sutton right now. Hello, Sutton, if you're listening.
Oh, she'll be listening. Nice sweet girl.
So growing up, obviously in a very unique way, Byron Center, you had a big farm with a lot of animals. Was there a certain person or event or anything that inspired you that you could look back on now?
I'll tell you, I hated growing up on a farm, honestly. I despised it. I never got real big into the horses, caring about, breeds and colors and patterns and the show. It was my dad and my sister mostly. I mean, I just saw them as, now I've got to spend hours doing chores that I don't want to do. I would rather be doing anything else, but horse and farm chores. That was what I saw living on a farm. So if anything, it taught me to work for sure. And then I couldn't do things that I wanted to do until the jobs were done. In terms of inspiration, I think I didn't really have anything that came to mind, except within the past, I would say maybe 7-8 years, I would say my dad. And it's not something that I saw right in front of me growing up, I would say. Like I mentioned, I was a challenging kid, and it's nothing that I saw right then and there, but becoming a parent, being a provider, taking care and protecting my family, it was my dad. And I really came to that realization, roughly 7 years ago or so. I've got wonderful parents, but my dad, he was a physical therapist, and then he ran a farm with a ton of animals, a ton of work. I remember our living room covered in so much like medical paperwork and stacked in piles and everything. Back then there was no computers or anything. And as a kid, we'd be running all over the place. And I remember my dad would say, papers, 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 because we'd run through the living room. He had everything stacked up just perfect. And he was shouting at us because if we knocked over a pile, he'd be messed up and have to put everything back together. And it's still a joke in the family, but, he'd leave work in the morning or leave home in the morning, go to work, take care of people, right? Serve people as a physical therapist. And then he would come home from his day and do chores. And then he'd finish up with chores and he would come in and do all the patient paperwork he had to do. And my dad worked a tremendous amount. And I remember at times you think about I'm like, oh, he works too much. And, I want to play basketball. And my dad, and he was grinding away. And at some points, it kind of pisses you off a little bit because you think about it, as a kid. But now, as an adult, as a father, as a husband, I totally get it. I mean, he was doing what makes sense to him and to provide the best life he could for us. And I grew up with a nice life. We had a nice house. We took vacations. I was very fortunate to have two loving parents who took tremendous care and provided opportunity for us. And that was his focus. And I see that now. I don't think I got it then. I definitely didn't get it then.
So
I don't know if it really clicked until recently.
It sounds like it kind of clicked. The realization came when Sutton was born, or right around that time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because to me, becoming a father, it put that into hyperdrive to provide and to create opportunity and to take care of and protect. And it's always been a focus, I would say, but a laser focus for me, obviously, when I had my daughter. And I can see that in me and then look at my dad, and it was the same. And those were the same things, and it was him demonstrating how to be an incredible provider. And and hard work comes with that, obviously. I mean, he works incredibly, incredibly hard and did back then. And, put the hours in to make it happen. But
it's really hard for us to fathom how much our parents love us until we have kids of our own.
100%.
You can't really describe that type of love. It's so surreal. And when you have grandkids, like I do with Jack, and now I've got 2 bonus grandchildren, it's just such a man. It's indescribable. It really is.
Yep. It's next level. It's next level for sure.
It really is. It really is. So, Brent, I know you've gone through a lot of changes. I mean, professionally, I know you have been, been getting promotions and getting new responsibilities, but not just including professionally. If I were to ask you in the last 12 to 24 months, can you describe to us a particular learning you've had that's made a difference in your life?
Oh, I feel like I'm learning every day, honestly. But I don't think I'm trying to think of something. You try to think of something earth-shattering, right?
Yeah, just something that's made a difference.
Learning every day. I'd say for me, it's what I'm trying to learn, which I've learned I need to do, and I'm trying to get better at it. Is like prioritizing myself a little bit, and that sounds selfish. It's not intended to. For a stretch of years, from being a cop, and then transitioning out of law enforcement into finance, I was so focused on work and just working. And I was very ambitious. I was also impatient, and wanted to go and get up and move up and grow, and so focused on work that I didn't focus on anything else. Honestly, I didn't focus on hobbies. I didn't have anything I was really passionate about. I didn't take any sort of time for myself. And I think that kind of magnified too, because when Sutton was born, I was like, I got to be here all the time. I got to be at the house. I got to be with the newborn. I can't go out and do stuff because Christina's at home now taking care of everything, right? My wife does so much. So I didn't feel like I could do much on my own or for myself. And so I think over the past, I bet it's been about a year, Christina she's really pushed me to pick up hobbies, explore some new things, try some new stuff. And she's encouraged me to do some things for myself. She understands how hard I work and how much I put into CG, into my teams, into my clients. And she's helped me realize that it's okay to do some things for me. Because I think that the first question you asked me, telling about myself or, what I like to do, if I would answer that question 3 years ago, I would have nothing. I would have been just working, just work. Work would be it. There would be no, hunting or being bad at golf or cooking. It would just be work. And so I think over the past 12 months, my wife's been a huge factor in that.
Well, I think Christina's exactly right. There's nothing at all selfish about that. I know it's cliche to say, but when you're in that airplane, what does that flight attendant tell you? You put your mask on first before you help the person next to you. And that's something that I think a lot of hard-charging or highly ambitious people, hard-charging people have a hard time doing. And it's one of the things I do see now more as I'm, 57 years old and get the opportunity to talk to fine people like you and people who are much older than me on my show or have become friends with them or coach them, is I see these incredibly successful people. And I ask them what their schedule's like, and it's amazing how much time they do take for themselves now. It really is. I worked with a team of advisors at one time, and there were 12 advisors, and they were all. I didn't work with them long. I did a couple of training sessions with them, and they were 12. There were 14 total, and they were all making a seven-figure income. So they were all making more than $1 million a year. And out of the 14, 12 of them worked less. They worked 30 hours or less a week. And when they were going through this, and I was a little bit perplexed. I said, well, they're my age. This is 10 years ago. They were, in their 40s. Most of them were, 30s, 40s, 50s. And I said, well, I'm assuming it's because you've worked for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You can do that. And they said, no, not really. We kind of started off that way. After about 5 or 6 years, we decided kind of as a group, they weren't a team, but they were close. They knew each other real well, and they kind of had this conglomerate. And they said, we decided we were going to do this. So 12 out of 14 were doing that, and they were having the best damn life possible.
It sounds like that.
I'm not saying go back to CG. Don't go back to Tony and Jeff. Hey, don't go back to Tony and Jeff tomorrow and say, hey, I'm going to work 30 hours a week. Brian said on the podcast. But
he said I need 1 million too. He said I need 1 million and 30-hour work weeks. I'll let you know how that goes over, Brian.
you'll be my last CG guest on the show. No, but I think that's incredibly true. And one of the things I've seen a lot lately, and I've been talking to one of my good friends, I've been talking to several clients, and even telling myself this, we have to get better at breaking patterns in our lives. And we get stuck in a pattern, and we get stuck in ruts, and we get stuck in this groove of whatever it might be. And sometimes it's working a lot of hours, going back home and taking care of family, not having the proper hobbies and taking care of ourselves. For some people, it's not working enough. It's just wasting time. And over time, that monotony gets depressing. And we get so bored with it that it begins to fail for us. And so I think I would tell people, even taking a different way home from work can be a breaking of a pattern. You know, I do, as you know, I do a lot of rocking and hiking. And I realized a week or so ago, I'm like, I take the same damn trails every time I hike. And so now I thought, well, I'll break off and take new trails, and I'll go backwards around the loops or whatever, you know. And little things like that are a little click that make you have a different perspective on life. And when you can make bigger changes, like picking up hobbies and trying new things, I mean, those can be pretty macro level perspective shifts. So,
yeah, I think for me too, like when COVID came on, I was in the office. I worked at a different firm when COVID came. And everyone went remote, right? So we went remote, and then the company I work for decided that we're going to stay remote. So that was magnified, right? Like I lived at work, right? And that's my wife. She's like, you live at work. You're working all the time.
Yep.
It's very easy to slip downstairs and sign on, and next thing you know, 3 hours pass, and everybody's in bed, and you're still grinding at the computer. And she's like, you live at work. And I think that really magnified it for me, because it wasn't an escape anymore. I couldn't get away from it at all. And you're right. It's not, I mean, I think, you know, super negative impacts on your mental health, on physical health too, for sure. I saw that. And I think she's like, she always tells you, like, you work so hard, do something for yourself, because I've been so focused on, when I commit to something, like when I see a goal or the mission, I'm in it. Like, and I'm fully in it, fully committed. And sometimes almost like it's like too much, where it's all I can think about, and grinding towards this goal, or working towards this goal, or being a part of this mission. And I think there's a balance for sure. And I'm typically not balanced. I'm too far into it and committed to what I'm doing, where it's hard to take a step back and take some time to reassess, or just, you know, be by myself, or self-care, whatever you want to call it, to refresh.
Right.
And we took a trip, my wife and I, we planned this trip to Europe. We just got back a couple weeks ago. And it was me, Sutton, and Christina. We went and we toured a couple of different countries. And we hadn't taken a big vacation in years, like a decade. It's been a long time. And I'd never come back refreshed from a vacation. That never, that I can recall. But this one, when I came back, I was motivated. I was refreshed. I mean, I came back in the office hitting it, and I could tell people were probably like, never take a vacation again, because I was getting my teams going, and I was ramped up, ready to go, more than I typically am, which is usually a lot. But that's the first time I came back, and I made a focus. I mean, I did work while I was on vacation, just to maintain and make sure clients are taken care of, or, you know, my employees and teammates were taken care of too. But it wasn't the focus. It wasn't the focus. The focus was on being on vacation. And when I came back, I mean, I was hitting it, and people were, I think, my team was looking at me when I was rolling through, ready to go, and they better be ready to go, because I definitely was. And that was the first time I felt like I really had that moment. You always hear about people, oh, I took a vacation, I come back, and I was so refreshed and re-energized. I remember thinking, like, I'm never like that. Like, it's daunting to take time off of work. I didn't want to take time off of work, because I would be out of work. And I'd come back to, you know, whatever mess or pile up would be. And this time I took a different approach to it. I had a different mindset about it. And I came back energized and refreshed, and with some new ideas and ready to go. And that's the first time it's ever happened for me.
Well, you got to start listening to Christina more then.
Yeah, don't say that, because she's going to listen to this, and then she's gonna hold me to it. I mean, the thing is, she already knows.
I'm not editing that. I will not edit that part out. By the way, I told somebody today, and I want to keep a promise that I'd give you some crap for keeping your team at breakfast a little long today. I was doing a coaching session with someone as they were driving back from a breakfast session with you, or a breakfast meeting, and the topic of today was multitasking and distractions. That was my coaching topic.
Perfect timing.
I think you know who it might be too.
I know. Yeah, I know you're talking about. That's also one of the people when I came back and I was ready to go, was kind of looking at me in the face like, oh my gosh, never take a vacation again, because you're coming back too strong. So no, I'm very fortunate to work with some incredible people at CG. The person you're talking about is on one of my new teams that I've taken over the past couple of weeks, and it's incredibly exciting. It's something I love to do. It motivates me to build a team, to build bonds and relationships, to gain trust from folks that report to you or that you're a leader of. I think I don't think that can be said enough. I don't know if that's talked about enough. We always talk about it from, the leaders perspective, but gaining your direct reports trust, your team's trust is so huge, and I'm seeing some of these blossoms start to bloom with this new group, and it's incredibly exciting.
The group you have right now is in the group, both your groups. Obviously, I've had the opportunity to work alongside a lot of them. It's good. They're good groups. They are. They've been absolutely a pleasure to work alongside of for me. Good. I've got a question. You have a unique style of, I would say, leadership. We talked about this, you and I, where, you're a big man, you're a tall man, wide shoulders, you got a deep voice, former military, former police officer. You kind of come in with there's a reputation that follows you before you get there, and where it's like, oh shit, Brent's going to be taking over our team, but yet it works. You change their paradigm relatively fast without giving up that structure and that accountability and that discipline that you teach. You soften that. It's almost like the iron fist, covered with a velvet glove. So I want to ask you, because I have shared this with you, Brent, and I've shared it with a lot of people. You're one of as you and I worked alongside of each other for a year or whatever it was, there was never me coaching you on leadership. It was us having conversations about your current, what you're working on, your opportunities and challenges, because I really thought this guy's done it before. You had such a unique style. I didn't think there was a lot I could coach you on other than maybe some tactical things and give you names to things you're already doing. So the question for you is, where did you acquire your style of leadership? Because it's high level and it's unique. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I've told you that before.
No, I do. I do. I do appreciate it. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and I think a lot of it comes from. I had some pretty tremendous leaders in the military. One was Sergeant Carter. He was a tremendous example of what a realistic leader was. I mean, this is a guy that's multiple combat tours, decorated veteran, seen a lot of stuff, but he kept it real. It was never fake with him. He was authentic. He was realistic. When something sucked, he would tell you it sucked. And, when something was great, he'd be right there with it too. He wasn't a sugarcoater. And then in the law enforcement, I had some wonderful folks that I worked with, some leadership there, similar skill set, right? Similar delivery in terms of hard exterior, soft interior, and how they can talk to folks. And then being a cop has been instrumental in the success I've experienced outside of law enforcement. To be able to have difficult, awkward, challenging conversations, to position and articulate it in a way that folks can understand it. That's been huge throughout my career. I've seen some people do it. I put a little bit of my own spin on it. the leaders I had in the military and law enforcement, and then I had a tremendous mentor at Alaris, the company I worked at before CG Financial. Her name was Denise, and she was instrumental in my career. A true leader, almost I would say almost pastoral in her leadership style. She took mentorship to extremes, fully committed to finding the right people and guiding them and mentoring them and providing insight and creating opportunities, challenging them, testing capacity. She was very, very good at that. So I take a lot of bits and pieces from there. I think sometimes I don't want to admit it, but I might make it up a little bit as I go along as well. But it helps offset some of that stigma when I do come into a room or take over a new team, and they know me for my background. They know that combat vet and infantry and special operations, law enforcement, or SWAT team, and they think that I'm going to be just this asshole, and it's not accurate, right? I mean, I totally can be. Don't get me wrong. There's typically a time and a place, but so sometimes I've got to turn that around with the folks. And I think for me, setting clear expectations with people, letting them know what you expect, what success looks like, how things are going to be different, why they're going to be different, and being really clear and eliminating some of that uncertainty, eliminating some of that gray area for people is huge. And when I do that and people start to see that I care and I'm committed, and I mentioned it before, like I know that I have to get their trust. They might not know me, or they might have a preconceived notion for what my style is going to be like. And I know that I've got to get their trust. I've got to show them, and not only show them, but do what I say I'm going to do and deliver on what I'm saying. And once you start to do that, people get into it, and they'll see that you're committed. They'll see that you put your money where your mouth is, that you're not full of shit. And that's been huge for me. So that's stuff that, I've learned and I've watched folks do. I mean, in the Army, right? In the Army, we say, I'm not going to ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. Mm-hmm. Right. So I do the same thing here. If I ask you to do a project, it's not something I wouldn't do myself if I had to do it. It might be tedious or time consuming, but I think of things from that lens. And I think that helps tear down some of that. Oh my gosh, Brent's coming in to tear things up, or he's going to be just a huge jerk, or not flexible, or too rigid, or whatever. I've heard all of it, right? I've heard all of it, but absolutely, I think if you talk to my teams, they see a different side for sure.
Well, I just want to address the audience right now, and I want to think of you out there, whether you are in a leadership role or not, a technical leadership role or not. You are in a leadership role. We all are, because we all influence somebody out there, whether it's our children, our friends, or family. Just think of some of the things Brent just said. I think setting clear expectations, sharing the how and the why things are going to be changing, kind of eliminating that uncertainty, show them what success does look like, gain their trust, and make sure they understand that you're not going to ask them to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. And those are some golden rules right there that we can all take away. That's a nugget of wisdom right there that anybody in that audience right now can take and say, how can I apply this to my life? Whether it's through my team, my company, my family, my friends, or whoever it might be. So thanks for that, Brent.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now the $1 million question that I ask everyone. You can refuse to answer it, you can deny or decline to answer, but what is one of the most challenging or difficult things you've ever gone through in your life, and how would you say you overcame it?
Yeah. I think there's quite a few. Just in my past life, sometimes I think about the world I live in now is sometimes it's much harder, and sometimes it's much, much easier than being in the Army or being a cop. But I would say one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through was the transition from police officer into finance. that was almost the thing that like defeated me, quite frankly. But I almost gave up at. It was incredibly difficult when I left. So the first 10 years of my adult life were spent in the military or being a cop. And as a police officer, I was high level. I mean, I was on the teams and I had the cool stuff and the cool stories and did a lot of really neat things. And I put away a lot of real bad people. I saved people's lives. It did some really awesome stuff. And when I decided to leave law enforcement and transition into some sort of finance, I had no idea. When I was a police officer, I was going to school at the same time to get my degrees. I didn't have the opportunity to do an internship in my bachelor program when I was, 20 years old, living at home with mom and dad. I didn't have that opportunity. I was in my mid-20s. I was married. I had a mortgage, right? I had bills. I had responsibilities. I had all that stuff. I had a wife, and I was leaving all I ever knew, to go to something I had no clue about. And when you think about finance, it's so broad. I mean, from corporate finance to accounting to advising to investments to portfolio manager it's huge. The spectrum is gigantic, and I had no idea where I wanted to fall into it. I had some thoughts, but for me, when I left being a cop, I knew that I had to move away from South Carolina, where I was a police officer, because I don't know the stats behind it, but most cops that try to leave law enforcement end up back in law enforcement. Because it's incredibly hard to do. It's hard to transition out of that because there's no other job like being a cop. There's no other job like being a cop. And all my friends were cops. I was only ever around cops. That was it. My whole life was being a police officer. Because when you're a police officer, it's not a job. It's your identity.
Right.
I mean, you're always a police officer. Always. When I go home, I'm a cop. When I'm out at the grocery store, I'm a cop. Today working as, 401k advisor, client operations, like that doesn't matter if I'm at the grocery store. Like nobody cares that I, manage 401k plans, right? Like nobody cares about that, but people care if you're a police officer. So I go to leave law enforcement. I knew I had to move. So my wife and I moved back to Michigan. So we moved from Michigan after we got married, and just her and I together, we got it all sorted out, and then moving back to Michigan to get away from being a cop. Because when I commit, right? But it almost broke me because I went to work for Edward Jones for the first few months of transitioning out, and it was a wonderfully terrible experience for me because it showed me what I don't want to do, and I'd never had exposure to that, so I didn't know what I didn't know. Trying to move into finance, and so I remember get all my training and the licenses and the studying and passing all the tests. And then I go out to do prospecting, and it's January in Michigan. I'm wearing long johns under my suit as I'm knocking on doors, right? Edward Jones thing, knocking on doors.
Right.
So I'm going door to door to door for 9 hours a day, just constantly getting doors slammed in my face because some random guys knocking on your front door wanting to talk to you about investments. And so you can imagine how well that goes over. So I go from being on the SWAT team, kicking in somebody's door, to the opposite end of the spectrum, getting doors just slammed in my face all day long. And I remember just continuing to fail, hearing no thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And it was the exact opposite of being a cop. When I had to arrest somebody and they told me no, that I didn't care. They were getting arrested. Like you can tell me no all you want. You're going to end up in handcuffs in the back of my car. I don't care how many times you say no. I might even have to fight you over it. Well, now I can't do that, right? So I've got to get the door slammed in my face and walk to the next house. And it was hours and hours of that. And I thought, this is the worst thing ever. Of all the things, I've been to Ramadi, Iraq. I've been in war. I was a cop in the ghetto. I was in the hood. And I said, knocking on doors was like the worst thing I ever did in my life for a career. And it seriously almost broke. I remember thinking, getting back in the car, I parked the car in the cul-de-sac, and I would get out and I would be walking, and And I remember getting back in the car and just thinking, like, what am I doing? I left law enforcement for this. And so many times I would talk to my wife and I'd be so down, and she was like, we moved and we uprooted our life and we moved back to Michigan and you're not happy. And it was tough. It was so rough. It was so rough. And then from there, I went to tried banking. Because I had no clue where I wanted to go in the realm of finance. So I was like, what about banking? Let's try that. So I got a job at a bank as a licensed banker, and I did that for about 9 months. And I wasn't too into it. It was fine, but it wasn't where I wanted to be at. And I was interviewing for police departments because I was ready to go back. I was ready to give up on transitioning out, and I was ready to go back to being a cop. And I submitted an application to a company I'd never heard of about a position I knew nothing about, and I got an interview. And I was negotiating salary for the police department. I had accepted an offer at a police department where we were negotiating pay, negotiating salary, and I came in and got interviewed at this other firm, Alaris at the time, and Denise had interviewed me. And I said, and then I got offered the job, and I told Christiane, this is the last time. I said, if this doesn't work, I'm going back to being a cop. So I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not failing. I'm not putting up with this. I'm not trying more things. I'm going to go back to being a police officer. I was good at it. I knew it. And then that was, over a decade ago, and I haven't looked back since.
That's
and
amazing.
that was it, man. I got so close to, like I said, if I wouldn't have got that interview, I'd be a police officer.
So how did you transition to CG then?
So CG, let's see, Tony owns Crooked Foot Hunt Club in Owasso, the pheasant hunting club. And so I came out for a veteran pheasant hunting event. So he does this, it's a wonderful, wonderful event. If anybody's in the area and as a veteran that's listening, please check it out. It's Crooked Foot Hunt Club. Every October, November, every fall, they sponsor this huge hunt where veterans can come hunt for free, pheasant hunt for free. And so I don't know how I'd heard about it, but I ended up there, and I met Tony. I went up to him and just to thank him for hosting this hunt. I mean, it cost a significant amount of money, and to do that, and the time and the effort from his team and the Crooked Foot folks, and I just went up to thank him. And then I started like research the club and him, and then I found out he owned CG Financial. I was like, oh, CG Financial sounded familiar. Well, at Alaris, we had joint clients. Alaris was the record keeper and the administrator for some 401k plans that some of the advisors at CG were the advisor on. And so the next year, I went hunting again. I started to talk to Tony about business because in my head, I was like, oh, maybe we could partner on some more business together. And I could sell business, and if they were selling business, they could put it with Alaris. And then we found I was looking at jobs, and I found there was an opening at CG for a position. A recruiter had reached out to me, and I actually interviewed then with Tony, and we had some of that common rapport from the hunting component. But it was a job that wasn't quite framed out, wasn't quite built out yet as a new position that they were creating to take over and kind of lead the 401k book of business at CG Financial. And they made me an offer. I actually turned them down in late 2020. I turned them down first, and then it was another year and a half went by, and I thought about it a lot. I wanted to grow. I wanted to get into a different change of pace. I wanted to join a different firm who was on the move, and that's no doubt CG Financial. And I saw Tony again, and he said to me, you ever think about when I offered you that job and you turned it down? You ever think about that? That's what he said to me. I said, well, lately I've been thinking about it a lot. And he said, let's have a meeting. And we met a couple weeks later, and then they offered me the role to lead the retirement plan book of business, and I accepted it. And I came aboard 2022, 1/1, like 1/3, 2022 was my start date.
Okay. I'll tell you, it's Tony came out of the womb negotiating and selling to the doctors and nurses. I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
I mean, I've never seen a guy negotiate and sell like him. I saw it when we were both in our early 20s. It's something to behold.
Yeah, it's like he knew too. He could just look at me and like knew I was thinking about it, and then he said it. And I was like, "Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. Let's do something." So a couple weeks later, here we are. Doing the thing. So
he was patiently waiting.
Yeah, next level for sure. There's levels to the game, and
So really, your career choice from the day you got out, you left home, serving as a combat vet, SWAT, then going to the financial services, really has all wrapped around the term service. So you served our country, you served the people of South Carolina, and now you're serving your clients and your teams. I mean, really, that's been a big theme for you as you've grown up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if that came somewhere from watching your father and your family serve these animals, and your dad being a physical therapist and serving his clients and patients. There's got to be something, because most people don't have that track record of three very distinct careers paths. I mean, obviously military and law enforcement aren't that, they're somewhat connected, but where it's the same, your style hasn't really changed. Your whole motto is, and theme is, to serve others, improve others, increase, others' chances of success. And, so there's got to be something that clicked in your childhood that made that happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think, my mom was a special education teacher in an inner city Grand Rapids school. So all day long, she's taking care and teaching these kids. And, my dad, we talked about, what he did. And really, frankly, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home where service is such a huge component of what we do. It's what Jesus preaches throughout the Bible. And I grew up in that environment, and I could see it. And, being servant leadership, it's not just a cool catchphrase. I mean, I think there's so much to it. And you nailed it, Brian. I mean, I love having experienced an incredible mentor and mentors throughout my life, and that I can draw specific success. I can tie it to specific people. I mean, Denise, I mentioned her, like, instrumental in my finance career, and I see how huge it was for me. I mean, it impacted me personally, professionally. It impacted my ability to provide a nice life for my family, my paycheck, my opportunity, success, all of that from one person who saw something and took the time and dedicated, herself to me and to grow my career. And I mean, what a freaking cool thing to do for somebody. I mean, what an incredible thing to impact somebody so greatly that it sets the course for their life. I mean, what a powerful thing that is. And if I've got the ability to do some of that, I mean, not even saying to that scale, but if I've got the ability to see something in somebody and share and teach and learn from them, and they learn from me, and create opportunity and put them into positions where they're going to fail, and that's okay, and they'll learn, and to be able to do that for somebody, I think it's special. But to me, it's an honor to be able to be a part of somebody's life like that. I mean, they would say you got one shot, you only got one life, live it to the greatest. We say all that stuff, and nobody, I can't say nobody, but people don't do it. I can tell you that. People don't do it. They don't take advantage of what you give or what they've got. And I mean, I try to do that, but if I can help people fulfill some of that stuff, I mean, that's an honor to do that.
That's the best word to use. It is a complete honor. And it's not, and sometimes it's the most challenging thing you'll do, but when you see the light bulb go off and someone, you see their life turn around or just even turn that corner slightly, there's no better high in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Because
it's that ripple effect, the butterfly effect, and that person's going to go out and potentially do that for someone else or improve somebody else's life. And that's really how you change the world, is by working better with the people that are closest to you. and
100%.
serving them better. Ooh. All right. I have a question. If I come down to your neck of the woods tomorrow with my time machine, dragging behind me in my Jeep, and we get in it, and you go back to some time in your life, Brent, you pick the time frame when you were younger, and you're going to sit down and talk to your younger self. I'm going to sit back and just observe. What would you tell the younger Brent? What words of wisdom, recipes for success or advice would you give yourself at a younger age?
Oh, I wish such time machine existed, because I'd probably buy like the IPO of Apple and things like that. It's like, that's the finance piece coming out of me is invest sooner, but that sounds boring. But it's something I'm teaching my daughter, so it definitely came to mind about investing. But I would say don't feel like you always have to hit home runs. I mentioned before, like when I get to something, I go all in, and I'm focused on being the best at whatever that thing is. And in some cases, it can lead to getting burned out. I mean, when I was a police officer, I wanted to do all the things, all the cool guy stuff. I wanted to join the teams. I wanted to be on SWAT. I wanted to be on K9. I wanted to go after, drug dealers and gang members. And I got to do all that. And I mentioned some incredible things, but I thought I had to too. Like, I thought if I'm going to be a cop, I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to do all the things, right? And I wanted to hit a grand slam, and I did that. And I burned myself out. That's part of why I left law enforcement. Is I did way too much. I had no time. It consumed every part of me, and it was because I was trying to constantly hit home runs. When in hindsight, like it's okay if you hit a single. It's okay if you hit a double. If you do, you're still going to get around the bases. Right, you might have to rely on a team member to hit another single or double too, but you're still going to score points. You're still going to score runs. It doesn't need to be a home run every single time.
I think that's one of the things I've learned really is the same thing. That's really where we came up with the term bamboo lab, because of the Chinese bamboo seed. You plant it, it takes 4 years to grow, then it blossoms in the fifth year and grows, I think, 90 feet in the first 6 weeks. But I think that's one of the things I've learned. Just really, I'm 57, probably in the last 5 years, I've learned that it's not about those big, huge hits, those big moments. It's about little gradual improvements every single day. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's sometimes you have to bunt and get on base. Sometimes you get hit, sometimes you have to, get hit and walk. Sometimes it's single, sometimes it's double. Every once in a while it's a triple, and every once in a great while it's a home run. But you really celebrate the singles. I mean, because the singles add up, and that's where you win games. That's where you win the game of life. I love that.
Consistency, right? Consistency. Put in the work for a long time. I mean, that's investing too, right? If I invest consistently over a long period of time, theoretically, I'm going to end up with a nice sum instead of trying to day trade and hit home runs every time. I mean, that's so is in life. I think if you can be consistent and working towards what you want to work towards, and it's okay if you don't get it all tomorrow, right? Some of it might come next year, but as long as you're working towards it, it's realistic, it's purposeful, you're committed to it, you're passionate about it, and I think consistent. I think we underestimate, and I think we underestimate consistency. I really do. I think you look online so much, you see the guy. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I take a cold polar plunge. I read 6 books. I study, Mandarin Chinese, and then I go to work, and then I just crush it, close deals all day. I mean, that's what we see, and that's not life, right? That's not life. Not even close, right? Not even close. I said sometimes I don't wake up till 10 minutes before I got to put my dress pants on when I get in the office. So it's consistency. I think it's underrated. I really do. And
it's consistency. And sometimes during that you fall down, you get off your pattern, you get back up, and you keep doing it. Because sometimes, whether you're trying that consistent route, it's called the aggregation of marginal gains, where it aggregates over time, then you'll get the wins down the road. Some days you kind of you feel like you're not doing something right, you feel like you're not seeing the successes, you feel like you're failing a little bit, just keep going forward. Get back up and move forward. Keep doing it. Make improvements every day. What do they say? If you improve by 1% every day, you're 38 times better at the end of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
That's something. Yeah. That's Brent, what's next for you? I mean, I know you've had a lot of changes professionally. Anything in line for you, either professionally or personally in your life?
Yeah, I'm in it to win it at CG. I'm in it to win it. I was just like you mentioned earlier, I was recently promoted to the leadership team. I mean, my core responsibilities are leading and managing these groups, operational strategy, how it impacts clients, how it impacts team members, focusing on some of the talent development within the firm. So I've got a lot of work to do in this new role that I'm incredibly excited and motivated on. And I know that when I can build the foundation, I know, what's next is to step higher into CG. So that's what's next for me is to crush what I'm doing now, to make a hell of an impact to the folks that I'm around, to the clients, to the people, to the company, and then just keep growing my career, and as much as CG will let me, to continue my journey together.
Well, they're pretty fortunate to have you. I think there's no doubt about that.
I appreciate that. Okay,
another question, a couple more questions here. Would you right now, as you've transitioned into CG over the past 2.5 years, obviously Sutton's 7 years old. You've been married to Christina for 15 years. You've had 2 former lives in the military as well as law enforcement. Right now, on this day, what would you consider a win for you? What do you say is when something happens, you say that's a victory? What does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm. I could think of a couple. Going back to something we talked about when a team member grows. So I talked about how important, mentorship has been in my life and how passionate I'm about it today. I think a win is when I see that light bulb moment, right? When I see that flower start to blossom, whatever analogy you want to use, I think that's a huge win. And then when I can see that, when it clicks and connects, and then you can reward it, right? You can acknowledge it. You can promote it, or pay more money to it. All those things that you want to be able to do when somebody grows professionally. That's absolutely a win for me. Another one, it's the cliche one, but true, is when my clients are taken care of. When I can be a solution, when I can offer solutions or good advice, guide a client through a tough or complex situation. I mean, I'm working on a hospital merger right now where there's a couple hospitals merging retirement plans together, and it's a lot. I mean, it's 1,500 employees are impacted by this, and $50+ million, and I get to be a part of it. And when we come out of this transition, it's going to be awesome. I mean, to be able to do that, usher that, and guide that, is things like that I love and are motivating. And then the last thing I would say is just, again, maybe selfishly, but when talent and performance is appreciated, like when I can deliver and people are like, yeah, he delivered. That's a win. That's a win. I mean, like I said, I don't sound selfish, but it's motivating when we can operate at a high level and it's recognized, or you can see that impact in a positive way.
So really, everything you just said comes to that one word we used earlier. It's service. Your whole damn life is wrapped around service.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, final question, my friend. Is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message that you'd like to leave with the Bamboo Pack? Yeah. I think just a few things that I talk to my teams about, that I try to think about, and just it's advice that's been shared with me
as I've grown in my career. And one of them is just take it one step further. It's something I repeat to my teams. It's simple to think about and to do it. It could be one of the smallest things, right? It doesn't have to be some massive thing. I mean, for example, and it's instead of asking for the answer, take it one step further and research all the places before you ask. Or something super simple, right? If somebody asks you for an Excel report, maybe one step further is naming the tabs or color coding or everything in the same font. Or, if you're going to go on vacation, instead of just an out of office, call your clients or email your clients and let them know you're going to be out. It's those little tiny things that it's just one step further, right? I think that's been something I preach and something I try to do for sure. And it's incremental. Like I said, it's not home runs. It's a bunt. It's a single for sure. But those things add up over time and make a big impact. They help position you in a positive light. They help highlight the service that you do. They help highlight the work that you do or demonstrate ambition or a thirst for knowledge. It's just those little things. It's micro stuff. None of it's earth-shattering, but it's simple to think about. And how can I take this little thing one step further and then deliver that result?
And there's really nothing in life you can apply that to.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's universal. Right?
It is universal.
Universal. Universal. And if I could share one more, it'd be I had trouble with this when I was leaving law enforcement. Is don't let your ambition be confused for impatience. It's ambition and impatience can look like the same thing if it's not properly articulated. And ambition is rewarded and impatience is annoying. When somebody's impatient and pestering, it's annoying. But when somebody's ambitious, it's celebrated. And those two things can look very similar unless you articulate them the right way. And I didn't at first. I was desperate to grow and to be more successful and to get more clients or get more assets or get promoted or get a better title or make more money. And it was all the right things, but the way I went about it was the wrong way because I was also impatient. And so I've shared this with a couple of younger folks on some of my teams of current and of past is talking about, don't misconstrue it, right? Mm-hmm. Channel your ambition the right way, to present it the right way. And that was something I got slapped down for that, frankly, by Denise, by that the woman I talked about at Alaris. I mean, she had slapped me down a couple times because I was ambitious, but I was also impatient. And then we had this conversation right here. Was very impactful for me as to how am I portraying it? How am I positioning it? And they're not the same thing, but they can look like the same thing if it's not properly portrayed.
I wish you would have told me that 20 years ago.
Yeah, shoot, I know, right?
A lot of headache.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you can think about those times where you're like, oh, why didn't I get this promotion? Or I should have got it, or that client should have been mine. And you complain or you moan and you groan or you say it too loud and somebody hears it and that type of thing instead of saying, what do I need to do to position myself to be able to do this next, to get it next time, or to set myself up for success? How do I articulate wanting to come alongside a leader to learn from them versus ready to just think I can take over for them, right? When I can't. It's those types of things that I thought that for sure and absolutely improperly displayed it. And like I said, I got slapped down more than once, and it saves a lot of heartache and heartburn and stress if you can do it the right way. But I think for anybody that's listening who is ambitious, just are you channeling it the right way to ultimately achieve that end goal?
That's great advice. And I think when you think about, if you have a goal in mind in life and you go at it like I'm going to hit a bunch of home runs to get to that goal, you're going to practice a lot of impatience because you're going to strike out a lot. But if you just say, I have that goal, but I'm going to go doubles and singles and doubles and maybe a triple here and there, that's more of the ambition and patience right there. That incremental growth, that Chinese bamboo seed type stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great advice, my friend, and great conversation. It was more than I expected, and I expected a lot. So,
good. That's good.
I appreciate you, my friend. You're a good friend to me, and you're a good man, and it's an honor to know you, and it's been an honor to have you on here. I just want to thank you for being such a great, wisdom-filled, inspiring guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Oh, likewise, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversations and getting to know you. I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff too. I know we both have that in common, and it's a pleasure, man. It really has been. I've been looking forward to this.
You definitely put on a damn good show. I can tell you
good.
So,
Good.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. Now, I know this is an episode, and I can tell certain episodes and shows that are going to have a major impact on people. So I'm going to ask you to do is please sit down and listen to this. If you're driving, running, hiking, whatever you're doing, if you can't take notes, listen to it a second time and take notes. I've got a full page of notes. I have no more room left on my paper here. And I've known Brent for quite a while. You're getting his message for the first time, most of you. So take notes and share this with 3 other people. Just send the text off or the email or the text or the podcast off. Send it and share it with 3 other people because there's a lot of wisdom here that can change people's lives. Please hit that like button. Please rate and review us, and please keep sending those heart letters into us. I love getting the emails, and sometimes I still get snail mail for people who somehow found my address. But send the emails in. Let us know what this episode did for you. I'll talk to each and every one of you 1 week from today, same time, same place. In the meantime, please get out there and give your best. Please get out there and show love and respect to others. And please, by all means, live with purpose and passion. I appreciate each and every one of you.